His house was empty when I moved in and he had handed me down furniture. He also has only 3 forks and 2 knives. Then he wouldn't put on the heating so the house felt cold and moldy. Also, he has no curtains and no decorations. His ex took everything not bolted down and he was too cheap to replace it. Just imagine $1 million house like that. I am grateful that I can live in his house. It is something I could never afford myself. But I didn't want to live in squalor. So I bought some kitchen supplies, and some furniture, but at some point I realized I was dipping in my savings all the time and he did nothing. I looked into curtains, but those things are expensive. His house has so many windows it is crazy. I didn't want to pay for this anymore. I told him I needed a fund to furnish his house, but he blew up at me that I was just with him for his money. I pointed out all the money I spent on his house. The gifts and the trips because he pays for nothing ever. Because he wants to be sure I am not here for the money. The fact is, if we break up I have nothing and the house is not mine. If I spend all my savings on his house I will be left with absolutely nothing. He wants a prenup and I am fine with that, but I can't help but feel used. Next to that, I am jealous of his ex-wife. I feel like she got treated and I am neglected. He proposed to his ex on a cruise with a $10K white gold diamond ring. I got the rhodium-plated Swarovski stuff that might cost like $100. The proposal was at a picnic in the park I organized, paid groceries for, and slaved in the kitchen for. I almost said no out of pure disappointment. However, I am afraid to bring it up and to be called a gold digger. I don't want to be funding a millionaire's lifestyle. He loves everything as long as I pay for it. As soon as he has to pay, it is frivolous and unnecessary. He talked about how he would see the wedding and it is cheaper than my financially struggling cousin's wedding. I can't help but feel he wants to demonstrate how cheap he can treat me. I called one of his siblings I am pretty close with and just told her everything. She was not surprised but just sad about how unhappy he was making me. She told me that from the day we started he had this idea that I was out of his league. He struggled to understand why I wanted to be with him and he probably just thought, it must be my money, so I took the opportunity to pack a bag. I waited for him to come home and he was pretty late, but I didn't want to sleep another night on this pretending I was fine while I was contemplating all this. Just ate me up. I had written down what I wanted to say and I had never been so scared before. I didn't want to hurt him and I didn't know how he would react. I opened that I was moving out and that I wanted to pause our engagement. He was very quiet and just sat down. I told him. He hurt me by calling me a gold digger and that I was done walking on eggshells and feeling guilty for just wanting basic things. I told him I was unhappy and felt neglected. He was just quiet and he didn't say anything. I told him that the constant comparison to his ex was unhealthy and unfair and that punishing me for her sins was abusive. One of the things about her was mostly ungratefulness. He would do nice things for her but it was never enough. The thing is, he doesn't do nice things for me and I have to be grateful for the pleasure of picking up the bill, so I told him that he was not ready for marriage. He remained quiet with almost no emotion on his face. I stayed quiet but nothing came out, so I decided that I would just leave. Only when I got up to go he said, "Please don't go." He asked me if I was pausing the wedding or calling it off. He wanted to know if it was over or if he still had a shot. He begged me not to do the separation, but honestly, I wanted it. I just told him to think about it and I left him. He was crying at this point. He sent me a very long text saying he was a wreck and couldn't sleep. He made all kinds of promises that he would go into therapy, sell his house, buy a smaller one, and make sure I am taken care of whatever happens. He said he would help me decorate and we would make a home. He again asked me to please come home, but to me, it doesn't feel like home there anyway.